360 cameras have been on the market for some time now, and they have gained a lot of popularity within action sports such as skiing, skateboarding, inline skating, snowboarding, and the list goes on. And with the growing popularity and the high usage, especially for Instagram, there is a lot of footage out there that needs to be improved. I'm not gonna give you any examples right here, but I'm just gonna give you some tips that I follow by when I'm filming with a 360 camera to get the best out of my shots. Quick note right away, these tips are for filming on a tripod, so when you're filming a solo session. They don't apply to every single clip. Obviously, you don't have to follow them, but they have proven to be quite useful to me, so I'm gonna tell you what they are. First of all, my equipment. I am filming with the Insta360 One X right here. Quite an old model. I bought it second-hand last year. I'm happy with the footage that it makes. For filming solo sessions, which I am mostly talking about today, I bought a tripod with flexible legs, which I think is very important because you can more easily adapt to different grounds or placing your camera in banks or something like that. The legs at one point fell off, so I had to fix it with duct tape. So maybe try not to save money on the tripod. I spent like 10 bucks on this one. And also I have the selfie stick from Insta360. Not really that usable for aggressive skating, but more for free skating. So when you're like skating down the street, great accessory for the Insta360. You just mount it on the top right here. You can extend the selfie stick to a certain length, and also the camera erases the selfie stick from the image as it merges the two pictures together. How does it work? Basically, you have two cameras within one, and one on the front, one on the back, and within the camera itself, the two images that are produced are merged, and you have a 360-degree image which you can then edit to whatever you want. It gives you the opportunity to decide how wide you want your image to be, and you can also make that really famous tiny planet thing. If I quit this season, I still be the greatest phone. Which is not really what I'm looking for when watching skate footage. Starting off with my first tip is distance and position. When you are placing your camera, it is essential to think about what do you want to film. Obviously you want to film a trick, that's right, but there is always the most important part of a trick, and usually you want to highlight that. So think about what trick you're doing and think about the essential, like the key point of your trick. So for example, if you want to do a switch up, usually the point where you switch up your trick is the most important part. Try to set up your camera there. Then also try to think your whole trick through. For example, if you are skating a ledge, make sure that at every point of the video you are actually visible. So like if you skate a curved ledge and you skate out of the image, it's unusable more or less. Think about the dimensions of the spot. How big is it, and how close do you want to go with your camera? So the closer you go with your camera, the wider the angle has to be, and the wider your angle is, the more contrast you have distance-wise. So there is this one point where you're really close on your trick, but everything else you're really far away, and usually it's not too appealing to watch. So maybe take the camera a bit further away and try to go with a less wide angle. Try to avoid the merging edges. By that I mean you have two cameras and one merging line in between, like the images are gonna get put together here, and there can be a slight overlay which, well, puts down the value of your trick again, or of the clip, and if you can, try to avoid it. For example, if you're trying to grind over your camera or jump over your camera, try to bend your tripod or just figure out how to do it. Obviously with my tripod it works, with others it doesn't, but if you can, try to tilt your camera so you're jumping over it or grinding over it. Obviously a risky move. Try to rehearse your trick before, and if you can do it, try to do it that way, because then you have your merging lines around here and you're grinding straight over it, giving you a nice clean image. And if you have your footage, it's always important to think about what format do you want it to be exported. So if you want a portrait mode, you can usually go a bit closer than if you go on landscape mode, but that is one thing you have to usually figure out for every trick on its own, and maybe try on some easier tricks. And if you're not sure, it's better to take the camera a bit further away than too close and make it an unusable shot, in my opinion. But well, it wouldn't be fun if you wouldn't risk anything there. Try to think of the whole thing first and think about what you want to highlight and how do you want to highlight your trick. This applies to basically filming anything. Like when you go out skating and filming fisheye, it's the same thing as when you're filming with this. One thing to positioning also is when you are placing a camera basically anywhere, be careful of your surroundings, be careful of the trick that you're doing, because placing the camera really close might give you a good image with a wide angle afterwards, but if you miss a trick and kick your camera, it's no fun. I've done it. The cameras don't really take, they're not built to take damage, obviously, and try to rehearse your tricks and just play it safe. Number 2 is related to the camera setup. Go for the frames at first. If you are filming a regular trick and you're not intended to go for a slow-mo, go for 25 or 30 frames per second. It makes your clip smooth as always. As long as you're not intending to go for a slow-mo afterwards, it doesn't make sense to up your frame rate. If you do, think about the lighting as well, because the more frames that you're filming with, the faster your shutter speed has to be in order to make the video not blurry. But also a faster shutter speed means a darker image. So if you're filming in a low light and you go for 100 frames per second, for example, your camera has to push the ISO up as far as it can, and at some point it just reaches its limit, so it has to go down with the shutter speed again, giving you a blurry video, and this just takes value off a clip, if you ask me. So maybe try to go for less frames per second especially when filming in a low light. If you're filming in broad daylight, it doesn't matter. The camera will adjust the shutter speed according to the frame rate. Speaking of shutter speed, you can adjust the shutter speed on an Insta360. When you go to settings, you see the option for shutter going from fast to faster. And you always want to use faster, because like I said, it doesn't give you a blurry image, or at least it tries to prevent a blurry image as far as it can. Last thing regarding the camera setup is you don't necessarily have to film in 5.7K resolution, because when you're exporting your footage to the camera, to the phone, it usually goes down to 1080p anyway, and unless you're planning on exporting your footage in the same resolution and making a 4K or 5.7K video on YouTube, it doesn't make much sense to just use up more storage for a high resolution, which gets cropped down anyway. Alright, so you have your camera set up, you know where to place your camera. Now it's down to editing your footage or getting your final clip out of your 360-degree image. And when you are doing that, when you're filming on a tripod with a steady, with no motion from the camera itself, think of the whole thing as if there was a fisheye filmer sitting on the ground, not moving. Well, obviously moving according to your trick, but not moving himself, like he's not walking or anything. Over-explained it. So if you're filming fisheye, with a regular camera, what you never want to do is zoom in or out. Don't do that. I think Tom might just do a whole violation video on this. He should. This is one of the things that you want to stay away from. If you're just filming a trick itself, don't go for zoom. Just find out one angle that you want to go for and use that for this one clip. So the app I'm using to edit my 360 cam footage is called Insta360 One X. The app itself says that it's outdated, but it still gives you all the necessary options to edit your footage. So I'm just gonna stick with that. You wanna tap that symbol on the bottom right with the running person in the square, and then you're going for the viewfinder, not the smart track. The smart track is a great thing from the app itself. It allows you to just choose a point and the camera tracks this point throughout the whole video. Cool thing, but it usually tends to give you kind of a stiff motion. And if you want to go for a smooth motion, I recommend going for the viewfinder. Usually takes a bit of takes some time to figure out, but it's just like filming a regular fisheye clip. You can zoom in and out with 2 fingers and try to watch the whole image through. Try to see the angle and if it works. And if you are happy with your angle, try to press and hold the red button and keep it in that position, and then the clip just runs and you follow your skater, or well, whatever you want to follow on the clip, giving you a nice fisheye look in the end. But it looks kind of silly from the outside, but doesn't matter. Clip itself tends to get 10 times better at least than if you're using smart track. So this might take a while to figure out, and just don't give up. Try to find your way around it, and I promise you with these tips you can get a really good use out of your 360 camera, and you can get some really nice skating footage done. If you want to see more of my videos, you can watch, I think I'm gonna put links up here and there, or in my description. You can also subscribe. The whole thing, as always, keep skating and see you next time.